Cyclone Gamane dropping huge rainfall over Madagascar on today's tropical weather bulletin. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical weather bulletin for March 27th. Well, the only game in town is Cyclone Gamane, which made landfall last night as a powerful cyclone, probably 100 mph category 2. That's what we went with at least. It's still code yellow and it's still dumping huge amounts of rain over northern Madagascar as it stalls there right now. Well, it's 65 days until Atlantic hurricane season and things are looking generally quiet. There's some thunderstorms blowing up across the Florida Panhandle right now, which is causing a few severe weather warnings. Into the Eastern Pacific, it's 48 days until hurricane season, and once again, still a quiet picture here. Just a few areas of thunderstorms in the very low latitudes, the intertropical convergence zone, and a few little bits and bobs just to the northeast of the Hawaiian Islands as well. In the Western Pacific, Luzon's got a new hat. Lots of thunderstorm activity completely blowing up over that island in the Philippines, and over the rest of the Western Pacific things are looking rather quiet. North Indian Ocean seeing a few thunderstorms in the tropical zones there as well. The Australian region, well, Northern Australia, the top end, maybe reaching towards Darwin, getting some thunderstorms right now as well, as are parts of northern Queensland and the interior regions there as well. But most populated locations aren't receiving very much. Cyclone Gamane obviously weakening a bit after its landfall. Still a high-end tropical storm. Still producing some very strong winds in that whole northern region of Madagascar, and of course extremely heavy rainfall. And in the South Pacific, no areas of interest to talk about here either. Things looking very quiet there, and people have been asking, where are the storms in the South Pacific this season? That's a good question. I don't have the answer, but they're not here at the moment. Let's take a look at Gamane then, a close-up. It is quite close to the top end of Madagascar. A cyclone warning for Diana and Sava provinces, and a cyclone watch from Analanjivofro province. I keep getting that wrong. It's 3 kilometers from Andrafialava, 15 from Ambararata, 30 from Ambilobi, 113 from Ambanja, and 157 from Sambava. It will be gradually moving in a generally southerly direction, but the jury's out on whether it will move east or west. Here's the latest satellite imagery on the storm, and you can see it is well over the land and producing once again some very large amounts of rainfall, but certainly it's still looking very good at its appearance. Its structure is pretty amazing actually, banding out there, a massive spiral extending from the center there, wrapping around to an enormous band there off the east coast, which is still over water. Here's some other imagery from the Indian satellite INSAT, showing some more visible imagery of the storm there, and you can see a little bit of a close-up there as well, just hugging the coastline, more closer to the west coast now than it is the eastern coast. Now most agencies are still calling for the recurvature to move towards eventually the southeast, but it is to be noted right now that the storm is still persisting further west than what the agencies are calling for, that being the JTWC and Réunion Météo France. So recurvature I think is still the more likely scenario, but there is still a creeping possibility that it could just die off where it is right now or drift slowly towards the southwest or even west. But there it is. It made that strong landfall last night. There it was, becoming and it looked like the eye was really developing just before it was going to make that landfall. And obviously the hilly regions of northern Madagascar are really putting a stop to that, and it is weakening. Eastern Pacific sea surface temperatures are becoming rather warm, but look towards the equator there, still a few cool spots, and that has been amplified recently, potentially this La Nina on its way. The Atlantic still generally warming up, but the Gulf Stream just losing a little bit of its temperature recently. It will fluctuate a little bit here and there. The Western Pacific really starting to warm up there, north of the Philippines up towards Taiwan. A few spots there getting to 28 degrees Celsius now, and in the lower part of the Philippine Sea looking good. North Indian Ocean also looking pretty decent. Still a little cool tongue there extending from Myanmar, but in general the whole coastline there is now reaching 26 degrees Celsius. It's also just about reaching up through the Arabian Sea as well along the coast now of Oman. And in the southwest Indian Ocean, of course, where Gamane is right now, off to the west, ironically, the sea surface temperatures are even warmer, 30 to 32 degrees Celsius. If it moves southeast, they'll cool gradually, but still 27 to 28 degrees near Mauritius. Of Australia, extremely warm waters still off the top end into the Gulf of Carpentaria, where temperatures are pushing 32 degrees Celsius. Coral Sea also looking very good. Northern Fiji, also an extremely high bank of sea surface temperature waters there, over 30 degrees, pushing 32 degrees once again, and that also reaches the tip of Samoa. Compared to average, today it looks like this. The orange zones are above average, the blue zones are below. So in general, the tropics are above average, a few cool spots off Australia, and also the Western Pacific only just above average there. Southwest Indian Ocean, a little cool spot actually where Gamane has been already. So if it does continue westwards, it will enter more warmer waters compared to average, but southeasterly it's looking close to average. The Atlantic, by the way, is still well above. Oceanic heat content looks extremely good still for the South Pacific over that whole area north of Fiji. Any system that forms there will have a field day. Coral Sea also looking decent. Worth noting that the Eastern Pacific is also getting some really decent amounts of oceanic heat content there now, pretty much on par with what we were looking at last September, which is really interesting. And the Western Pacific really getting up those higher values as well, but still a little way to go for that. GFS for some reason initialized the storm at 122 miles per hour this morning, which is certainly not the case, but the GFS calls for the storm to recurve towards the southeast and then move through Mauritius and become a tropical storm landfall for Mauritius. Now, two schools of thought here from the GFS ensembles, we marked them out there. 40% chance it goes left as we march with that arrow, still a 60% chance it curves right and then goes on to affect the Mascarene Islands, but it's a 40-60, it's pretty close now, and it may just stay where it is and move slowly southwestwards. However, the main threat, regardless of this storm's intensity now, is going to be the rainfall. On top of what we've already seen so far, and bear in mind that 20 millimeters per hour at times from this storm, maybe even higher, but we're expecting a further 43 to 44 inches of rainfall there according to GFS near where the storm made landfall. That's 1,100 millimeters. Extending further southwards, we're still looking at maybe 18 inches further south along the coast of Madagascar. That would be 450 millimeters. And for Mauritius, the GFS is currently calling for nearly 7 inches, so still a big rain event on tap if that recurvature scenario plays through. 7 inches, that is nearly 200 millimeters. In the longer range, really not much to look at. The storm dies off rather quickly, it starts to drift southeasterly, it loses really its orientation, and then it gets completely dragged along by a frontal system and extratropical cyclones there and gets absorbed into one of those. Really not much to talk about at all in the medium range, we just had to show something, and it's this: nothing else around the world expected between day 5 and 10. Scan the barcode and that will take you through to the Force 13 merch store, where you can take a look at all our items as well as our full season and individual storm animations on request. And now still waiting for Hone t-shirts. Well, even the Southern Hemisphere is struggling, so if you think we're going to get Hone anytime soon, well, you're mistaken. In the silly range, really not much to look at here either. Just still this GFS model still calling for those two systems, one in the Australian region and one in the deep Western Pacific there. It's been saying this for several days now, and I think it's just going to be pushing this scenario for quite a while, and it will always be towards the end of the runs. GFS has a habit of doing this, and it's a scenario really of tomorrow never coming, and I don't think these two scenarios will play out, but just keep watching. If it gets towards the more closer range, then maybe we'll take it seriously. On this day, March 27th, 1991, we saw two decent-looking storms. Cyclone Errol peaking as a 120-mile-per-hour Category 3 out over the open waters of the Indian Ocean. Might have been close to the Cocos Islands, actually. And we also had Cyclone Fatima further out to sea, towards the west there, Category 2. It was also peaking round about now. So two cyclones populating the South Indian Ocean, and neither of them real threats to land. So it was a decent time to just spectate those two storms back in 1991. Back to today, Gamane of course being the main thing. Alberto is the first name in the Atlantic this year. In the Eastern Pacific it will be Aletta, and in the Central Pacific it's still Hone. We're up to 13 storms for the year now, and also don't forget we're running automated coverage of Cyclone Gamane right now as well. We've also got Winiar next up in the Western Pacific. The North Indian Ocean's next name is Remal. Now I'm taking a break for a few days. I'm traveling a little bit, so my next tropical weather bulletin will be, I think it will be Saturday, but it could well be Sunday. We'll keep you up to date on the Force 13 channel. Next name in the Australian region is Olga, Southwest Indian Ocean, Hidayah, and the South Pacific, it's Peter.